It's kind of like it's almost from accidental to calculated with that tier 1 right through to,
Tier 4, oh my God. Tier 4 starts at $100,000 and goes up to a maximum $215,000 per incident.
This is the Aesthetics Growth Podcast.
Hey, it's Bref here with another episode of the Aesthetics Growth Podcast. As always, excited to be here to bring the best of the best, the latest information and guests to the show. And today we're diving into one of the most probably overlooked, maybe critical topics for medical and aesthetic practices, but compliance. To guide us through this complex and sometimes confusing issue, which I've been learning more about by speaking to our guest today, Nick Cappello. Nick is the founder of 404 Ninjas, a really specialized compliance and IT firm that helps medical and aesthetic practices to protect patient data, to stay legally compliant, and sleep better at night. And we all know that we need that. So with over a decade of experience in IT strategy, data protection, HIPAA compliance, Nick is a trusted advisor. He's helping thousands of businesses across the US and has done over his career who want that peace of mind, they want that protection, and he's doing this right here, right now. And I'm super excited to welcome Nick to the show. Nick, let us know a little bit more maybe about your background and how you got to be where you are today.
Sure. So, my name is Nick, and I was born in a little suburb outside of Chicago. Went to DePaul University, and I really got started in the world of computers when I was young, about like maybe 8 or 9. My dad brought me into where he was working. Either I was sick or something like that, but he had to go to work, and we didn't have anybody that could stay home. So I was, just with him sitting in the background, relaxing. And they were trying to do something on this newfangled machine called a computer. This was back when they were all CRTs contained in one unit. The floppy disks were real floppy disks, about 8 inches wide, all that kind of fun stuff. Yep. And so he was trying to figure out why his buddy was having a problem putting in this one record. And so I'm just sitting there, twiddling my thumbs, and he's, they're both dumbfounded. I just go ahead, take a look at the screen. I go, "Oh, you're trying to put a letter in where a number's supposed to be." "What?" So yeah, you're putting in an O instead of a 0. He's like, "How do you know that?" I said, "It's a phone number. You can't put a letter in a phone number." And my dad, knew then I had an aptitude for this stuff. And he's like, "All right, we're going to go ahead and get you started." So that's what really started the whole thing. That, and I've also had, my mentality is I don't like an unsolved puzzle. There can be no solution, but I don't like that answer. The answer of no solution is at least an answer. But if you sit there and are like, "Oh, gee, I don't know," that's always been one of my, little pet peeves, one of my irks. I got to make sure I know it. So I went ahead, through my dad, my mom, they bought me computers and stuff like that. And the way that I viewed computers is it's all just one big puzzle. Part fits into here, it fits into here, fits into here, fits into here, fits into here. And I've always been really good at that. So then, I graduated from, now we're going to go ahead and hit that fast forward button, and we're just graduating from college here. And a buddy of mine worked at the help desk for Amico, and he's like, "Hey, come by, let's get you on here because you're." I was in my degree is in journalism, but that's the only thing that they had at that point in time that had computer networking in it. The business was more of like how to utilize the programs and stuff like that. Or the comp side was just more of like how to make the stuff. There was nothing for networking. There was nothing for, integration, except for like how to integrate satellite networks and stuff like that. So that's why I have a degree in journalism, but it's a technical degree in journalism.
Okay.
So then started off at the lowest ranks in the over at Amico Oil, and did my stint in the help desk, and they're like, "Okay, you're just a little bit too advanced for the help desk." This was like after about 5-6 months, like, "Yeah, no, we need you on network level stuff." So then they trained me how to go ahead, build a network, name your network, all that. I mean, I was drinking from the fire hose at that point in time. And to be honest with you, I loved every minute of it. I learned so many things about it that I still use to this very day. And I will always be grateful. I will always be grateful to Amico for doing it. They did a lot of things wrong, but they did a hell of a lot of things right. And so I was working there, worked up the ranks and worked all that. And then my position became redundant when BP bought out bought out Amica. And so I'm like, okay, well, I can either they told me you can either sit at a desk for the next 40 years or you can take the buyout. I'm literally like 20 something at the time. I'm like, oh, I'm not going to sit behind a desk. I got to be out, I got to be out where the people are and stuff. Cause that's where I make my most, impact. And so then from there, I went to Coca-Cola. From Coca-Cola, again, just, I started off at the network level. Then I was doing stuff with SAP. I was doing a whole bunch of other things. Again, everybody would decide to merge because Coca-Cola at that point in time had 36 entities. Coca-Cola bottling, Coca-Cola sugar, Coca-Cola sweetener, Coca-Cola this, so many. And then they merged. My position became redundant. And then I'm like, oh crap, I got to get a real job. I got to get a real job now. So I went ahead and I went on my own for about, let's go ahead and say 4 or 5 years. And then one of the companies that saw me were like, Nick, we've got to have you. It was a healthcare company. And I'm like, okay. And they were offering health insurance, a whole bunch of stuff, I'm like, ooh, health insurance. Yeah. And so I went ahead, took that gig, and I was in the healthcare industry for about 10, 15 years. And yeah. And then now,
Cool.
as I'm getting older, I just started the 404 Ninjas, and I'm leading into what I know best.
Awesome. And Nick, I know that was kind of the almost like the fast forward version there as well. But during that time, obviously a lot of businesses going online, the growth of the introduction of the internet, the growth of the internet, as you mentioned, floppy disks and everything. I can recall those days as the internet was starting, blossoming. Floppy disks went to CDs. Everything has changed since then. And with that, with everything going online, I think there's really critical importance to what you do within the healthcare industry. So for anyone who doesn't know, can you share what 404 Ninjas does and how you help medical and aesthetic practices?
Sure. So I'm what's known as a managed service provider. So I take you and I take your business and I take a look at it from not only an IT perspective, but from an actual business perspective. In the realm of healthcare, first thing that I do is, number one, are you HIPAA compliant? If you're not HIPAA compliant, it doesn't matter. I could go ahead and give you the best network. I can give you the best software, best things. If you're not HIPAA compliant, it's going to be useless. So the very first thing I do is determine, are you HIPAA compliant? And I do that in a myriad of ways. I walk in the door and I take a look. Are you shouting out full names when you're asking for your clients in the waiting room? Are you saying, hey, Mrs. Jones? Hey, Mrs. Jones, that's fine. But if you're saying, hey, Roberta Jones, no, you can't be doing that. It's a light violation of HIPAA practice. But if I'm sitting there and I'm a bad actor and, I don't check in, I've got either a voice recorder or I'm just writing down names. I've got a nice place to start if I want to get all those names, because then I can just go ahead, take a look, take a look, query your database for all those names that I've got, and boom, I've got all that information. Next thing I do is I take a look, make sure that there's no screens facing you, because if there's a screen facing me, I'll be able to see it. That, believe it or not, that is one of the most common HIPAA violations out there, is the fact that I can see a screen from where I'm sitting.
Patients walking in and just like visibility on that screen, right?
Yep, absolutely. Well, basically, let's just kind of backtrack a little bit. HIPAA basically says the public cannot know a thing about you, Bref McHugh, walking into a doctor, getting an appointment, or even what you're there for. That is none of my business. I should never be able to know it, and it's up to the individual. It's up to the individual doctor and team to make sure that nobody knows that you're there. So how do you do it? You do it through HIPAA. You make sure that, no screens there, nothing, blah, 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 all that kind of fun stuff. Now, the real thing that you have to remember is, HIPAA just isn't about patient safety. It's not about data safety. It's not about making sure that all that stuff. It's about ensuring the trust of your clients. Am I being safe here? Is anybody ever going to know that I came in and I had a mole removed? Or is anybody ever going to know that I came in for heart surgery that I don't want to know that I came in for heart surgery? That's the most important part of HIPAA. I could be sitting here talking to you. talk about fines, I could talk about procedures, I could talk about dang near anything. But if you don't get in the mindset of I'm here to protect my patients, you need to really start thinking about another way to think about that, because that is the biggest reason. And it's the ones that sit there and don't have that somewhere planted in their brains. That's the one that gets breached almost immediately.
Yep. I think that's it's really important to kind of emphasize that as well. It's about that the trust with the patient, the provider. Obviously, there's compliance, there's things that can break that trust, that can break compliance, and they can be serious from the business standpoints, which we'll get into. But I think it's really relevant right now as well, because I think it matters with the ability to scale, and how medical aesthetic practices are scaling and can scale quite fast. Also,
yes.
HIPAA can sometimes feel like a back burner. Like, when you're growing a business, there's always this must do and then just a could do. And I think stuff like some of these compliances, some, business owners put them in different levels and on a back burner. And can you talk a little bit about how that's just not a good idea, and the real risk of ignoring, this type of compliance and these types of protections in today's landscape?
Oh yeah. I mean, there are many separate tiers that you can get violations for in HIPAA. I mean, so you've got tier 1, which is crap. I had literally no idea I was violating this. I'm sorry. And that could be your smallest fine. That could be like $740 to say about like $22,000 per incident. Now, this is very important, and I made sure I, accented it. Per incident means, now, let's say something happened and 10 of my records were released, were breached. Just because I'm Nick Capello doesn't mean that, okay, that's one incident. No, each one of those 10 incidents can earn you a fine. So think about it. If you get $22,000 for the fine times 10, you've just lost $250,000 just based on me right then and there.
Wow.
So, and then there's tier 2, which is, oh yeah, I should really do that. We don't have a plan for it, but I'm going to plan for it. It's so ignorance is not really an excuse, but they kind of tend to be a little bit lenient. Not a lot lenient, but they tend to be a little bit lenient. Tier 3 is.
Could you provide just a few more maybe examples of the maybe tier 1 and tier 2 and tier 3, just for the listeners, so they can get an understanding of maybe just some of the most common types of violations or mistakes that they're making?
Yep. So tier 1 is, like I said, the screens are facing you. If I'm an investigator, or if I'm an auditor and I walk in, I'm for the OCR, that's the Office of Civil Rights, or if I'm somebody that's doing it as an independent contractor, if I walk in and I see those screens facing this way, or let's go ahead and say there's a piece of paper in the printer and it's face up for some reason, it's got a name on it. Violation right there. Why? Because there's a name on it. Everybody that comes into a doctor's office is basically, to everybody else, is nameless, faceless, and ID-less. Nobody knows, nobody cares. So, the first one is the screen. If you get caught with that, that's called an unknown. You should know better, but you didn't. Okay, great. I'll go ahead and I'll take that. Now tier 1 and tier 2, they are what's called actionable. So you can do something to resolve that. Tier 2 would be like calling out a full name in the waiting room. Bref McHugh, I need Bref McHugh. That's something you should really know about, but it doesn't really, it doesn't weigh up high on the whole thing. So there are other things that are bigger, but that's something you should know, but you need to implement, type of thing. That's a tier 2 violation. Calling out
the full patient identity, essentially, right in front of other patients.
And it's not just to one person, it's to everybody. So yeah, basically, when if you ever notice nowadays, they'll sit there and they'll just say Mr. McHugh, or if it's like a very unique first name, they'll call you by your unique first name. Like Bref. I don't think there's a lot of Brefs around in the U.S.
It's Bref more than Mr. McHugh for me, for sure.
There you go. So something where I could never really truly identify you from a hill of beans. So that is a good thing to keep in mind. But we're humans. We make mistakes. And if I call out Nick Cappello or Bref McHugh, that is an actionable item that you can take you can take action on. And it's kind of like the equivalent of the slap on the wrist at that point. Now, tier 3, this is where people start getting into big trouble. And this is where I tend to try and draw that line and go, oh, if you're thinking about going to tier 3, keep me out of this. Just keep me out of this. Tier 3 is, oh, I know that. I just don't want to do it. But if somebody makes me do it, I'll do it. Those are the people that are always going to get hit. They're going to get the compliance, and they're just going to go ahead. It's going to be nasty. Those are the people that don't have that mindset. It's like you said, I'm busy, taking care of patients. I'm busy upgrading. I'm busy doing this. I'm busy growing. I don't have time for HIPAA. Those words, I don't have time for HIPAA, should never be in any physician's language. And I'm not just talking about from my perspective, the IT perspective, from the actual, above thing. I can only talk to the stuff on the HITECH Act and anything that relates to that particular point. But, I know for a fact there's other things that are related to HIPAA that are beyond, the HITECH Act that you really need to go ahead and do. Now, you learn a lot of this stuff when you go to nursing school and when you go to doctor school and stuff. You've got to have that stuff in your brain. But it's the ones that sit there and are like, I'm not going to do it unless somebody forces me to do it. Then those are the ones, and then there's tier 4. Tier 4 are the ones that you always see in the news. They're the ones that get breached, and they're the ones that are like, don't care. I got breached. Great. Basically it's kind of like willingly breaking the law at that point in time. You're basically saying, yeah, I knew it, but who gives a rat's fat one? It's because they'll use stuff like, oh, HIPAA's outdated. HIPAA's this, HIPAA's that. They try and use any word to twist, that. And you can't have that. You just can't have that. And, so basically,
is tier 4 as high as it goes?
Yeah, tier 4 is as high as it go, and tier 4,
it's kind of like it's almost from accidental to calculated with that tier 1 right through to gotcha.
Absolutely, and tier 4. Let me take a look here. I've got that list. Tier 4. Oh my God, tier 4 starts at $100,000 and goes up to a maximum of they increased it now, $215,000 per incident.
So you definitely don't want to be playing in that
not
area.
to exceed a certain number, but
Gotcha. So Nick, understand just the serious nature of the whole situation. What does a compliance setup look like for a typical med spa or medical practice, and what's the bare minimum that they need to have in place?
Bare minimum is number 1, no screens facing. Number 2, firewall. Number 3, documentation. And what I mean by that is every procedure needs to have something written. I don't care if it's how you sweep the floor, if it's how you do, write it down. Because if you don't have it written down, that's where you start getting into the point of tier 2, tier 3. Because tier 2 is, I know I should have written it down. I didn't get to it. I apologize. Or I know I didn't get it written down, but it's silly. I don't want to do it. That's where you get into the bigger problems. So documentation. And the other thing is to make sure that you have a manual, a HIPAA manual. It doesn't have to be certified. It doesn't have to be, blessed by somebody. It just has to be either, stuff that you can literally go on to the web and cut and paste direct from the HITECH Act, or you talk to somebody like me. I've actually got the little manual, and I can give you guys those manuals. It's that kind of knowledge that's in those manuals. It's free. You can get it anywhere. You don't have to have 14 years of experience. You don't have to have a degree. You don't have to have my brain. It helps, but you don't really have to have it just to have that little manual.
So the bare minimum, having number 1, the awareness obviously helps, and I know most medical site practices are aware that they need to do things, but bare minimum is having that awareness, some form of staff training, and like you said, the manuals there, just from a bare minimum level. Then of course they have to implement.
Right.
When it comes to,
but the biggest part, and I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. The biggest part of that is the firewall. So a firewall basically keeps you away from the internet as much as possible. If you don't have a firewall, you're going to get breached no matter what. Now, if you can have a firewall, but unless it's what's known as the stateful firewall, you've got nothing. You've got something that just, you turn on a port, you turn off a port, and that's it. A stateful firewall, you turn on a port, you turn off a port, but it's also taking a look and examining what's coming in and what's going out. So, I mean, the easiest way to put it is there's firewalls out there that your traffic slows by a little bit coming in and out, but it examines every packet that comes in, every packet that goes out, and packets are the way computers talk to each other. And it says, hey, okay, this is good, blah, 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 blah. Now you can even get it to the point where it can read the information that goes out, like in an email. If it's got PHI, patient history information in there, it won't let it out. It just goes ahead and it just says, sorry. And it sends you an email saying, hey, so-and-so just tried sending out PHI. Might want to have a talk with them. So you can get it up to that particular level. But for somebody like a MedSpa or something like that, your basic sonic wall, your basic Zywall. And I mean, there's even one I tend to use it myself. It's called OpenSense. It's a great one. It's real easy and it can be put together very cheaply.
So the firewall system, that sounds really, really key there. That's like you said, that's with digital communication online, obviously the ability for bad things to happen through those communications, through bad people doing bad things, or hacking, etc.
I mean, you sit there viruses. Every day. You sit there and you hear every day about somebody getting breached. They do that because they either have an inadequate firewall, no firewall, or they have something. They have a firewall out there that has what's called a 0-day. Now, if you have a 0-day exploit on it, 0-day exploit means it was there when it was when it was made, and nobody caught it until right now. But the ones that don't pay attention and don't keep that firewall patched every single day or every 2 days or something like that, you're gonna get steamrolled. And that's why you hire somebody like me, because what we do is we make sure that we monitor every single system in your network. That's not like a X-ray or like a cautery pen or something like that. We take a look at everything. We put the Ninja on it. The Ninja protects every single computer, but it also takes a look at the firewall and says, hey, are you up to date? Why did you miss something? Why did you miss something? And it makes sure that everything happens. So all you have to do is concentrate on what's in that little pamphlet for the HIPAA stuff. We take care of everything else. And that right there is what a lot of physicians do not understand. They think that computer guys are really just supposed to be there to fix a computer, fix my printer, do this, do that. No, if you're in the medical industry, get somebody like me that has a background in either medical stuff, HIPAA, whatever. I do have a certification level in HIPAA. So,
talk to us a little bit about that, because that's from our conversation. We'll get back to, I want to definitely, talk a little bit about the software, because it seems like it's just such an awesome application for practices, very, easy to use and get set up. And there's like a lot of power under the hood, but also, your background in the HIPAA compliance. Can you talk a little bit about that just to share with the audience?
Sure. Yeah. So, I went ahead, I took the 10-hour class, sat there, fell asleep twice only. So I call that a record here. Most of the guys that are in my position, they fall asleep at least 4 or 5, 6 times. A lot of it is just boring, rote nonsense. It's something that just being in computers and being a security front person. But the things that you have to remember are the fact that you're not dealing with a computer anymore. You're dealing with a person. You're always dealing with people, but in this case more often, because it's a record of a person, if you don't do your job right, you've not only ruined the physician's life, you've ruined a person's life. And that's something that you got to be mentally aware of, and you got to kind of keep in the back of your head. There are sometimes it keeps me up at night. I'm going to tell you right now. This is not for the timid people. This isn't for, somebody that's like, okay, I know I'm going to make more doing HIPAA. No, because again, if that breach comes out and it's something that you as a consultant didn't do right, it's on your head. So that person that got that information leaked, you've just now outed that person. Let's say that person, well, nobody ever wants, their information to be leaked. That person didn't want anybody to ever know that they had to have a little finger, an extra little finger removed, or that they had skin cancer removed or something like that. That's personal. You failed to keep somebody's personal information from getting out there. That is something, like I said, that keeps me up at night.
I think in a world of AI as well, and we were talking
Yeah.
about this on our initial chat, that's that potential leak or that PHI getting out there, the repercussions are even more serious, because with the ability to build profiles and deep fakes and all kinds of stuff,
Absolutely.
I think it's even more serious. Would you talk a little bit about, like, have you is there anything on the AI realm or anything that you've seen recently, any trends that you've seen just within your space in the in the tech space, in the HIPAA space, that would be helpful to share with the audience as well?
Yeah, absolutely. So like you said with the deep fakes, but most of them are audio in my world. You'll get somebody calling and they got the information either through like a third party medical broker or something like that, somebody that's not really bound by HIPAA. So they get in trouble because they lost the records. They get they get sued and stuff like that, but they never get fined by the thing. But that's usually way far down in the chain and stuff like that. If your name ever got that far down the chain, and there's other issues going on there, but they'll have people calling with an AI voice saying, "Hi, my name is Nick Cappello. I need to have my medical records and I need to have them faxed to blah 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 blah." It sounds like me.
Mm-hmm.
It's coming from a number that's spoofed that looks like me. And when people are like, "Oh, okay, where do you want me to send it?" Sure, boom. I've seen that happen. And the reason why I've seen that happen is I was actually in an office, and funny thing is, I called the office and they were asking for. I've never been a patient at that particular clinic, but they called as me, demanding my medical records in my voice. It was pretty good. I got to tell you, it fooled even me for a minute.
That's wild. I mean, so that's obviously something for everybody to pay attention to, is just the use of AI in there. And like, now, does your technology, does that essentially help to protect against all of those potential threats when it comes to the phone systems?
Nothing can really get that at this point in time. However, education, teaching, making sure everybody's informed. So, for instance, one of the things that I press is making sure that there's a field in there. The field holds a password in there. It's not just like your password to the thing. It's what I call the records password. It never gets out. It just sits there. The only reason why it even exists there is if I call in and I ask for my records, they're going to ask you what's your password. You do that, you got it. Because 9 times out of 10, nobody ever knows that. What I tell their patients is use a nonsensical word, something that doesn't exist, or something that you would never say in your life. Because the biggest way that people get breached these days is through Facebook, Twitter, any kind of social media. I can find out everything about you, and I can probably guess, that your password is your dog's name, your cat's name, your wife's name, your kid's name. That's what they usually start with. And then they go down the line. Boom, boom. Where do you work? What do you do? Then they take the common words for that. But this way, if your practice has the records password in there and they don't match it, number one, you've got a recording of the call. Number two, you can just go, hold on for 1 minute. You call your provider and say, "Hey, I've got somebody that's trying to steal some information. Can you please trace this?" Then you get back to the call. Yeah, I'm sorry. My system's acting up a little bit. I can get that information to you. Again, where am I sending it to? There's a script you follow, and it's in that little manual. There's where am I sending it to? Okay. Can you tell me? Can you go ahead and verify your address again for me? Great. Okay, let me go ahead, and once my computer comes back up, I'm sorry, it just rebooted. I'll get it to you. Hang up. You never have to worry about them again because they didn't do it. Now, of course, people may forget their thing, but I'd rather have somebody be mad that they forgot their own password for it than have a breach. I mean, seriously, there's, it's there to protect the patient, and it's there to protect you as well.
So Nick, so maybe to take us into the Ninja software, because I thought that was very interesting. So you obviously, we spoke of things that are distinguishing, how you're helping medical and aesthetic practices with obviously your background, the credentials, your time in the industry. I think you've obviously developed products specifically for medical aesthetic practices. You do consulting where that helps, right? As part of different I'm sure programs that you offer.
Oh yeah.
With talk a little bit about the application and how that can help practices out. I think that'll be
okay. So the application is what I like to call it's the let's see, how can I put it? It's the ninja in the night that protects you, which is why we are the 404 ninjas. Ninjas were always hired to work in the background and make sure that there's nothing going on, and make sure that everything's working to the way it's supposed to. Ninjas were hired to keep the status quo the way it is, and so that's what the Ninja software does. It takes a look at everything you're doing. It says, okay, these guys here, they're all up to date on their patches. They don't have any viruses. They don't have anything. I don't see anybody installing any software that, oh, wait, hold on a minute. There's a computer that just got on. I don't really recognize it. Let me be isolated for a minute, take a look at it. Okay, it's a new one that's coming up online. Let me put the monitoring on it, make sure it's up to date, all that kind of stuff. So all the typical things that happen that I was talking about, keeping your computer patched, making sure that things aren't going out that shouldn't go out, all that kind of stuff. My system can record all of that. And remember what I was talking about, documentation. You as the clinic owner, you have access to that information. So let's go ahead and say you want to know if Mary Sue was playing Candy Crush or something like that when she should have been doing some work. Or, maybe that this particular person accessed an area of the medical software that they shouldn't have. My system can interface with a lot of the EHR systems out there, and it can go ahead and say, Mary made an attempt to go into the admin area. Mary made an attempt to go into the accounting area. Something like someplace where she shouldn't have been. So this way, not only does that
real-time alerts, and also actions based off. Okay.
Oh yeah, within like a 5 second, you'll know within 5 seconds. And so yeah, if you got slower internet, probably 7, but anywhere mostly between 5 and 7. But the biggest thing it'll tell you is the status of your entire office right then and there, so you can see how many people are offline, how many machines need to have stuff patched, how many things are in violation, what they're in violation of. It just shows you right then and there in one pane of glass. And that's the best part of it, and that's the best part about it, because a lot of these days these things called network monitoring systems, NMSs, or in my case RMM, remote monitoring management, you had to go here for this. No. My system, all in one, and you just, like, if you want to get more details out of it, you click through the whole thing. You can see what's been patched, what level it's been patched to. You can go down. So everything that if you did for some reason get breached, a HIPAA auditor would want to know. And I'm going to be that little ninja that sits on your desktop. The little icon of this guy right here sits on your desktop. And he's watching out for you. He's watching out for you. He's watching out for your servers. He's watching out for your firewalls too.
Gotcha. If you're going to break it down almost on a bullet point level, what does the Ninja do exactly for those? When it comes to that protection, if you're going to really summarize it tight.
Yep. So the Ninja, first off, make sure that your computer is secured. It patches it. Make sure that you got all the latest security patches. Make sure that there's no ports opening up or anything like that. Number 2, it does antivirus. So granted, nowadays, a lot of the firewalls have antivirus and stuff built into it. They have antivirus, anti-malware and stuff, but God forbid something sneaks by, we're the last point of defense, and we can make sure that you're doing it. Number 3, it also tells you, my system also tells you, hey, this particular piece of software was added, this particular piece of software was removed, or something like that. So you can either, say, why is this person doing this? Was it malintent? Was something installed, that shouldn't have been installed or something like that? So it kind of just keeps everything, like I said, the Ninja keeps everything at that status quo. You and I, you being the practice owner and I, we get status quo in there. We get what the ideal workstation should look like. If it deviates from it, my system will know, and my system will be able to tell me, hey, so-and-so did this. Hey, so-and-so did that. Hey, so-and-so did this. Well, why are you doing that? That's beyond your standardized test stuff. And the other thing that it does is it also lets me know that your system's going to fail before either the system or you even know it's going to fail. So this way I can go ahead and be like, hey, I'm getting a bunch of, things from this machine over here. Looks like that disk is going to die. We need to replace that disk. Or, hey, this person, is having some problems with the printer. I think it's their driver from what I'm seeing. I need to remote into the system. And that's the other good part about it. I need to remote into the system, and I need to go ahead, check, and replace for you. So this way, boom. A lot of the stuff it does, though, is self-healing. So let's say a patch doesn't work. It uninstalls it, it reinstalls. But as far as like drivers and stuff like that, it assumes that the driver's okay because there are so many. I mean, right now to date, there are 67,244 different drivers for printers, modems, microphones, cameras, all that stuff. You can't keep track of it. So, but it knows when you've done it and when it's not. And if for some reason it keeps restarting, that particular driver, it tells me, hey, I can't fix it, but you've got a bad driver for your camera, or you've got a bad driver for your print. Then you have to get a human involved. And that's either me or, one of the other guys that works for me. We come in, we remote, we give you the printer, everything's all good. But like I said, the biggest thing that my software does, it gives you the peace of mind that everything is working, everything is being protected, and everything is as HIPAA compliant as can be.
That's it. I think that's, just at the top of the show, we're talking about just that peace of mind, making sure that everything is buttoned up. And then if I like what you said towards the end, which is there's almost a predictive analysis with it as well. When things are starting to perhaps trend, or there could be an issue about to occur, you get the notifications and get to take that proactive action as well, which is awesome.
Yes.
Nick, if someone wants to learn more about what you're doing, if you find out a little bit more about what's happening over at 404 Ninjas, what would be the best way to connect and reach out?
Easiest way is to go to the website, https://404ninjas.com. Easiest way, it'll tell you everything you need to know about us. On the top, you can even go ahead and get a link to my Calendly, set up a call. We can sit and we can talk. Or you can also find me on various podcasts, which like this one, you can take a look and see and take some of my wisdom and all that. And you'll be able to find me on different messaging platforms. I'm on Facebook, I'm on Twitter, I'm on all that stuff. Wherever you see the Ninja, you know that you've got a hold of me.
Awesome. I love it. And, you mentioned just with sort of the knowledge and everything, is there any more nuggets of advice, or is there anything else, a tidbit of information that you would leave that every med spa owner should know when they're approaching or navigating, the changing playing field of HIPAA moving forward?
Right. So realistically, a couple things. Number one, HIPAA just isn't a law. It's a lifeline for patient trust. So I know I've said that, a couple times, but this is the easiest thing that'll help you always remember it. HIPAA is not there to work against you as a med spa owner, or you as a physician, or you as a nurse. It's there to help you out. It's there to save you. It's there to be the one thing that keeps you out of the courts and jail. Another thing is, let's see, HIPAA fines, the first couple, like the $74 ones, not so much. But HIPAA fines are like parking tickets. You don't really care about them until they start accumulating. Then, oh Jesus, you see the impact that it has. Besides the fact that you've now just lost, some trust, you're now taking a monetary loss for all this. And, and this is something that is easy. 65% of all HIPAA violations are easily rectifiable. I mean, you could just sit there, turn that monitor around, flip the piece of paper over, call somebody by their first name or their last name, stuff like that. And people are getting fined for doing that.
Yeah. That's a big number, 65%.
And those are the ones that are, anywhere from like $74 to say like about $8,000, $9,000. Like I said, and that's why I said they're like the parking tickets. That's going to start hitting you for something that you can easily rectify. So just do it. I mean, I don't know how I can make it any plain and simpler. Just do it.
I think I think you did, right? Because number one, it's about awareness, and as business owners, as entrepreneurs, a lot of us are moving fast. Like we said, we're doing things, we're going in different directions, but this is something that sooner or later it can catch up, and when it does, it can be detrimental. You mentioned some of those numbers earlier, depending on the severity of the violation, perhaps that could put certain businesses, underwater, out of business, and worst case scenarios, people end up doing hard time for these types of things. So,
absolutely,
Nick, thank you for sharing your knowledge today. I know that it's going to be helpful for many of our listeners, and even if it just helps, one business owner out there to avoid any of those pitfalls, then that's value that's been absolutely worth sharing. So thank you so much for that.
Well, thank you for having me on the podcast. It's been great talking to you. I love it. It's just like talking to an old friend. And anytime you want me back, I'd be more than happy to come.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Nick.
Thank you.
Hey, it's Bref here with ClinicGrower, and I've got a quick favor to ask. If you're loving the Aesthetics Growth podcast, go ahead and hit that like or hit that subscribe, more importantly, so that we can keep bringing you the best of the industry. I really want this to be impactful and the highest quality, and the best way that you can help us to do that is to hit that like, hit that subscribe. And remember, if you would like to be a guest on the Aesthetics Growth podcast, go to clinicgrower.com/podcast.
This is the Aesthetics Growth Podcast.